Hello, BookTube. I got a wee bit unexpected writing done and decided to treat myself as a result. And when you're a bookish person and you live where I do, there's only one possible treat. Some of you nerds will say, alphabetize your books? No, no. The treat is to go to the Brattle Bookshop. I was there only a week ago, but I was there with a guest. And that ruins everything. So I went by myself today. I went to the shop first thing this morning. Uh, those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, the Brattle Bookshop is a used bookstore. They're in downtown Boston. They're terrific. Just books on every subject except romance. Shelves double stacked, lots and lots of turnover of stock, and also a sale lot next door that is thousands more books for $1, $3, and $5. Thousands more to browse through. Now, this morning was spitting rain, so there weren't a whole lot of books that were open out in the lot. They tarp over the carts, they close over the doors on the side panels and whatnot. But that doesn't run you out of luck because the prices on the inside of the shop are perfectly reasonable. And I had a few books that I'd called and put on hold. Oh, are we gonna get? Oh, here we go. So I had plenty to do. I didn't need to worry about the sale card. So I got a bunch of books that I want to show you. And they're all hardcovers, I'm noticing. They're all hardcovers. But that was no problem whatsoever. And those of you who are curious, quite a few of you email me and say that you missed Bag Tuesday. You missed the bag saga. The saga where I noticed that my cloth shoulder bag was wearing out. The shoulder strap was pulling away from the body. And that in no time at all, it would rip. And it would, when that happens, it's going to happen at the worst possible time. So I dragged you all through a psychodrama, a multi-part psychodrama of me finding a new shoulder bag. And a lot of you, I did eventually find one, a leather bag that I got for free. I Frankensteined the heck out of it, put a new shoulder strap on it. And a lot of you have been asking, how's it going? It's going wonderful. Not only is that bag great, it's absolutely infinite. You can stuff anything in there. But it has stopped creaking. A lot of you leather fans told me that it would stop creaking. It has stopped creaking. And it's starting to change in two ways that I really like. Probably in a year or two, I will think they've gone too far. But right now, not only is the leather darkening, which I'm assuming is just use. It's that every time anything comes in any contact with it, it gets absorbed into the leather. But it's also scuffing. Tiny little scuffs here and there. It doesn't look pristine anymore the way I got it. It looks used in a way that I really like. But anyway, the hardcovers are no problem. In other words, so let's just look at the hardcovers and see what we got. Of course, it's not 30 books because I didn't have access to dollar books. The books in the shop are reasonably priced, but they're not $1. But I found this. I have had a copy of this ever. This is George V. Higgins, the author of The Friends of Eddie Coyle and a whole bunch of other books. And this is his book on writing. This is a book called On Writing that it would actually be worth your while to read, as opposed to a certain other book called On Writing. And this is all about nothing artsy-fartsy here at all. There's plenty in here that I don't agree with. There's plenty of retroactive, post hoc ergo propter hoc kind of nonsense about how I was always destined to be a writer. Christopher Hitchens used to do that kind of crap. Martin Amis used to do that kind of crap, and all sorts of people. Gore Vidal used to do that kind of crap. In fact, I'm pretty sure Hitchens learned it from him. And every once in a while, George Higgins will resort to that. The thing I'm talking about, the kind of thing I'm talking about, is epitomized in the epigraph to the very first chapter, on the very first page. If you haven't always been doing it, you haven't always wanted to do it. No, no, that's the alcohol talking. This has a ton of ruminations on storytelling, on pitching your work, on dealing with rejection, on dealing with the savaging that writers get from other writers. I can't wait to reread this. Just can't wait. I'm so happy that I found it. And when it comes to happy to find things, well, I couldn't be much happier than I am about this thing. I have now the complete Patrick O'Brian in hardcover. I was getting the piecemeal, one at a time, two at a time, getting doubles by accident. Well, finally, I narrowed it down to one book that I didn't have. And I could not remember either the number or the name. So last week, Micah Cummins and I were there. We were at the shop, and I saw these Patrick O'Brian hardcovers. It wasn't all, didn't have all of them, but I thought, okay, is one of these the one that I need? I don't remember, and I did not leave a note for myself, even though I could leave a note on my phone, and it would be really easy to do. I haven't kept a note on my phone about any part of this procedure. When I needed 10 Patrick O'Briens in hardcover of scattered numbers, I did not list those 10 on my phone. When I needed 5, I did not list those 5. Now I needed 1, and I didn't list it, so I left them all behind, came back here, and checked to see which one I need. And it was this one, so I called the shop and had them hold it. I now have all of Patrick O'Brian in these American hardcovers. It's just a little eye over my shoulder like that. How are you doing? And that certainly betokens a read-through, don't you think? I mean, if I now have them all, surely that means I should read them all again. I've been sort of kind of holding off. I reread the first one and the second one a couple of years ago, maybe the third one. But I've been kind of sort of holding off, and there's no reason to do that now. I have them all. What I want to do is go through all of these and lovingly annotate them. As punishment, a pleasant kind of punishment, as punishment for the fact that I did that once upon a time. I had all of these hardcovers once, years ago, probably 15 or 20 years ago, whenever this series ended. I had them all. And I did that. I went through them all, carefully annotated anything that I liked, and put summary notes and quotes like a commonplace book at the back of every volume. And it staggers me even to say it, but I somehow got rid of that. I don't know. Somewhere in the world, someone has that set of Patrick O'Brian. Why I would get rid of such a thing when I had gone into such length of effort and love to annotate it, I have no idea. But now I have them all again. I'm going to do that again and hold on to them until you have to pry them from my cold, dead hands. So surely a read-along is in order. Then I found this thing. University of California Press did a whole series of books on the ancient world a long time ago that are uniformly great. All the ones that I have read have been wonderful. They did a Life of Propertius. They did a book on Horace. They did a book on Catullus. They've done a whole bunch of things. And I found one today that I've never seen. This is by D.A. Russell, and it's Criticism in Antiquity. They all look like this. This is about writers writing about other writers in the ancient Greek and Roman world. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. This, believe it or not, although that's probably putting a lot of you to sleep, this has a real strong likelihood of being the thing that I go to tonight. I am not going to pick up Treason's Harbor. Treason's Harbor has its own reason for being, and that is in a sequential read-through. This thing I'm going to read tonight. But maybe something in here as well. I don't know if this is sequential or if each of the chapters can be seen on its own. Yeah, it looks like each of the chapters you could really take on their own. So I could do, there's a chapter about different structures and theories of narrative in the Roman Empire. I might do that tonight. I'm happy to find this, very much so. Notice the sun fading there. This is, somebody had that just in the wrong place and then got rid of it. I have a strong suspicion I know who that somebody is. But then this next one is, these next two are actually examples of me getting a book because I know I love the author. And I'll just let them win me over with the subject. Books that I haven't read, books that I haven't had. There were 3 examples like that today, and 2 of them I grabbed. The one I left behind. The first writer is Christopher Hibbert, Hibbert, whose books I love. His biographies and works of history, I just think they're fantastic. So I grabbed this, The Making of Charles Dickens, which is about Dickens's boyhood, his boyhood and young manhood. So I imagine that this will culminate with him publishing. I haven't really checked, but I'm assuming that this will... oh no, chapter 10 of 11 is called The Novelist Triumphant. So this goes to his publishing career. It gets you into his publishing career. Try though I might, and don't tell Katie at Books and Things, but try though I might, I like reading about Dickens a lot more than I like reading Dickens. A lot more. And this, maybe it will be another example. I know that I will enjoy reading it, because Christopher Hibbert has never written anything. He's written a million books. Every one that I've ever read I've liked, which is why I got this. I would have got it anyway, even if the subject didn't appeal to me, but the subject would have to go a long way to not appealing to me. We'll get to that because I don't have 3 of these as examples. I just have 2. But the second example is Jasper Ridley, the biographer Jasper Ridley, who I think is terrific. I really, really enjoy his writing. I always have. There are postcards in here. Right, we'll look at those. This is his biography of Lord Palmerston. This is a hardcover of it. I had this once as a trade paperback from, I think, the UK, that was so stiff that I don't think I even tried to read it. I got it. I kept it for a few years, always meaning to get to it. Every time I opened it, I thought, this is going to blow up like a bomb. I finally just got rid of it. I think I sold it to the Brattle, that 20 years ago. Just thinking sooner or later the Brattle will provide. Sooner or later I will get a hardcover, and here it was, tucked away in a shelf where it'd probably been there for months, and neither I nor anyone else had seen it. But I found it, and I grabbed it because Palmerston is great to read about, really good, and also Jasper Ridley is terrific. And the postcards are the ghostwriter E.F. Benson. Not that he writes books for other people, but that he writes ghost stories. There he is with a dog. How interesting. All right, well, the ironclad rule, if you find a postcard in a book, is that postcard is your bookmark. So I'll just put those in there in Lord Palmerston. And then the third example of that I didn't get was a volume study of the Battle of Omdurman, with the battle where Lord Kitchener wanted to avenge Khartoum, Gordon of Khartoum. Very Victorian War type thing, and it was written by Philip Ziegler, who I love. But I'm waiting for a great big new Kitchener biography that'll have Omdurman as 1 chapter, maybe 2 chapters. It's an interesting thing to read. It's with whirling dervishes and desperate forays and whatnot, but it's not a period in... I'm not going to shout, so... Okay, but it's not a period in British imperial history that really all that much interests me, so I left it behind. But it was a trio. It was a trio. Philip Ziegler I love, usually no matter what he's writing, but I'm sure I would have liked that book. But and then Jasper Ridley and also Christopher Hibbert. So that was a trilogy there, so to speak. And then we have the final 2 books, which are a little bit melancholy, just a bit. But not for the reason that you at first might think. They are 2 big books on Philip Larkin, the poet, Philip Larkin. I got Andrew Motion's biography of him, great big thing that somebody put a library covering on. And I got Anthony Thwaites' big collection of his letters. And again, the same person must have had both of these and just protected both of them. These are, you always see them together when you see them in somebody's library. And I have, for a while, had Larkin in that kind of slowly rotating list of authors that I mean to go back to, that I mean to systematically revisit, especially in light of my systematic reread of W.H. Auden, where I read everything about him. I read 10 biographies and biographical studies, and I also reread his poetry. I gave myself a long, slow year of wallowing in his poetry, not hurrying through it and really living with it. And I'm really glad that I did. I understand Auden as a person now much better. Obviously, if you watch this channel, you'll know that my main familiarity with him was his occasional prose, the stuff that I write, his criticism, his book criticism, which is terrific, absolutely terrific. I don't know how many of those volumes I've gone through, just wearing them out, underlining every word, every sentence, and then move. Once it falls apart, I get a new copy of it. That stuff by him is great. But it had been bothering me for over a decade that I wasn't really getting his poetry and that I wasn't living with it. It wasn't coming to mind. When I think of 20th century poets, the way that you know that you actually own a poet is if their verses are coming to mind, their phrases, their insights are coming to your mind unbidden when you see something that echoes what they're writing about. And I am that way for Marianne Moore. I am that way for Edna St. Vincent Millay. I am that way for Anne Sexton. I am that way for Elizabeth Bishop. I am that way for other 20th century poets, but not Auden. And now I am. I noticed I was very proud of myself the first time an Auden line came to me that wasn't, the one famous line from Auden that everybody knows. And once I sort of finished with that, the nice thing about it is that I'm not finished with Auden. Now that I've done that, I feel like I have now started with Auden. But it's pretty exhaustive what I did. And once I was getting to the end of that initial exhaustion with Auden, I immediately started thinking about Larkin. Because he also has his fervent devotees among 20th century readers of 20th century poetry. And the way that I get into someone like this usually is through nonfiction. It's usually the way that I do it. Once I feel like I know them, once I feel like I know the contours of their life, then I sort of go with the poetry. I did that with Auden, and it worked really well. I think it's time that I did that with Larkin. And these are the 2 volumes to have. These are the 2 to really launch that in. There are other books, and I've had them, I've reviewed them, and then I've tossed them. But I'll be on the lookout for them. I also need a really nice 1-volume collection of his selected poetry. I seem to recall there's a big volume, something that sort of looks like this, but I haven't ever had it. I don't have an ebook of any Larkin. I don't have any Larkin at all here, except for the couple of poems of his that are in anthologies of mine. So I obviously need that. But the way I go at these figures means that I don't need that yet, oddly enough. Most people would go to that first and then go to these things. I'm going to do these things first and then go to those things. So I knew these were at the shop. I saw them the other day, so I just called and grabbed them. And I would have revolved Larkin in my mind anyway as a figure to do. My deep dive, if you want to call it that, and I'm sure there are people that know Auden's work better than I do, but my deep dive into Auden put Larkin in my mind anyway to do. Larkin and also Wallace Stevens, but one elephant at a time. So I would have revolved him in my mind anyway, but there was a little more urgency here, a little bit, his place on the rung got a little bit higher for the melancholy reason, which was the death of Martin Amis. Martin Amis was very much the same thing for me in that I have always liked his nonfiction. I've always liked both his considered nonfiction, the longer works, including his book on 9/11, and his great book, The Moronic Inferno. What a book. I read that when, probably 40 years ago, and thought, this kid's as good as his father. And the way your mind works, I always thereafter thought of Amis as a kid. And just the other day, when he died, I was rudely reminded that he died an old man. But I still kept thinking of him that way. And his novels, I pounced on every one of them. Him, Julian Barnes, all of Bret Easton Ellis, Jay McInerney. I pounced on all the writers that sort of exploded into prominence in the 80s. I paid close, scrupulous attention to this guy's fiction and hated all of it. So when he died, I of course didn't have any of his novels here, but I did have his nonfiction. I had The War Against Cliché, and I had The Rub of Time, 2 collections of nonfiction of his. And I went back to those and was just struck all over again by how much different the register is, how much I love his literary writing, how much I just love it, as contrasted with the novels. And I was reading The Rub of Time. And I read, he has a couple of pieces on Larkin in here. And the first one, the long one, I read, and it just blew me away. It just blew me away. The piece itself, the loving way that it talks about Larkin, just I just loved it. Absolutely loved it. And that sort of pushed things up a little. I'll be re-examining. I will be commencing my deep wallow into Philip Larkin this summer, in part because of Martin Amis. I will do a deep dive into Amis's fiction, but like I say, I was pouncing on those books. I was ripping them to shreds, but I was pouncing on them. I was paying really close attention. I don't think I missed much. When I pay close attention to an author like that, I don't think I miss much. I really don't think I'm going to come out of a deep dive in Martin Amis down the line and say, he really was a brilliant novelist. I don't think that's going to happen. But I I felt like I owed him something anyway for a lifetime of ragging on his fiction. I felt like I owed him something. And the little melancholy tribute that I can pay him is that he loved Larkin. He breathed Larkin's verse everywhere. Now, he loved Bellow as well. And this urge is not going to go that far. But if that's the case, then, I mean, he says it in this essay, and he says it really well. I wonder if I can find it. Larkin quotes Clive James, who's always great with a quip. And Clive James said, "Originality is not an ingredient of poetry; it is poetry." And Larkin, when he was reading that, said, "I've been thinking that for years. I've just never put it that way." You will find when you read, you won't, but you would find if you read the criticism of Clive James that all of his stuff is like that. You read a line like that and you think, okay, well, that summarizes what I've been thinking about something a long time. But he says, let me see here. Let me see if I can find this. Well, Amos mentions he's quoting Larkin in this piece, and he's not referring to any book. He can just call the lines up, even though he says, "I read his lines twice, 35 years ago, and yet I summon them without the slightest strain." This is the key to Larkin, his frictionless memorability. And Amos also mentions that Larkin is sometimes tediously referred to as the poet's poet, but that he's really the novelist's poet. It's insights like that I have found when a critic offers them that really do sort of crack the plaque off my reaction to someone and get me to go at them again. I think that's the signature good that a good critic can do. Is that exactly that they will come at someone. They won't just be repeating tired bromides. They'll come at a figure in an essay in such a way that you suddenly feel an urgency to examine that figure again, no matter what you think of them. Now, Amos could go on forever about Saul Bellow, and he will not change my mind. But Philip Larkin, I am now ready. I have these two things to start with. And to go back to this essay just one more time, he's so good, though, on everybody. On everybody. His piece about Iris Murdoch, for instance, I'd already started before this. I'd already started a reconsideration of Iris Murdoch. But one of the lines that he tosses off in that essay is, one of the unforeseen benefits of having children is that it delivers you from your own childishness. There is no turning back. But about Iris Murdoch, he writes, returning to her novels, with hindsight, we get a disquieting sense of their wild generosity, their extreme innocence and skittishness, their worrying unpredictability. Her world is ignited by belief. That kind of writing will send me back to an author. Absolutely, they will. What was going to be my point about his piece with Larkin? Maybe not. Maybe I won't know. Yeah, he says that it's the novelists who revere him. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. He quotes liberally from Larkin throughout this whole collection, so it's not just in that one piece. And that's what's going to do it for me. That's what's going to send me back to this author. And I'll start with the nonfiction. I'll start with the poems, or the letters, and with a good biography. The only biography like it that I think I know of. I sold it. I sold the Dickens out of both these volumes, but I didn't really. I think I read a chunk of the letters collection because it was at my library, but I didn't pay the attention. I had come to a conclusion about Larkin, and I was settled. I put him way on the back burners. He's not on the back burners anymore, and it's thanks to Martin Amis that that's true. So there you go. That is my Brattle trip for today. Not quite as many books. We've got two big doorstoppers on Philip Larkin. We've got Jasper Ridley's biography of Lord Palmerston in a hardcover that I knew was out there somewhere. I knew that it existed somewhere. It's been 35 years, but I came across it. Then Christopher Hippert writing about Charles Dickens, the young super hottie Charles Dickens. Then a criticism in antiquity from a series of books that I know and like really well. On Writing by George Higgins, which goes immediately on the pile for tonight. And at long last, Treason's Harbor by Patrick O'Brien. I now have, at long last, the whole of the Aubrey and Maturin series in hardcover. The same hardcovers that I had once upon a time and annotated and then got rid of. So if one of you out there has that set, feel free to let me know. Not that it matters. I won't be taking it back because I have these now again. Now I just have to figure out when and how I want to go through them. And do I want to take you all with me? I don't know. It seems like a ready-made booktube thing. But anyway, that was my trip to the Brattle. Not exactly impromptu. I owed myself a little treat after a tiny bit of work that I had to do. But I had a blast, even without the dollar cards. So this shows you that you can really enjoy the Brattle even without the dollar cards. But nevertheless, I'm pining for them. As soon as this massive block of rain filters out of New England, the carts will bloom like tulips, and I will be there. I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.